After the game the other night, Holtman seemed to indicate that like a lot of things might be on the table moving forward after the way practice had gone leading into the Illinois game. And I just, as on the coaching staff, like how have the last couple of days gone? How much do you guys try to open things up? Like how much do you put on the table when you have a game like that where there's a lot of questions about like effort and things like that after the game?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Good question. We actually had a much better day of practice yesterday, and I think there had to be some, and there's been some very honest and real conversations that have continued to have to take place, and it's our guys were made aware that the way we played, it wasn't so much about how the game ended, but the way we played throughout the course of that game was not acceptable, was not a good representation of certainly what this team is capable of, but what we're about, as a program. And so that had to be brought to light. And, our guys responded well yesterday, and we have to see that consistently.
Now, when you guys spoke a lot in the off season about like having ups and downs and bumps and things that you expected there to be turbulence as this year went on. Are those the types of things you thought you would be addressing at this point of the season, or did that catch you as a staff maybe a little bit by surprise?
I think we expected some inconsistencies in areas, Adam. We've part of an area that we were concerned about going into the year was kind of the consistency from a leadership standpoint, because we had so many new guys and we didn't have really any captains returning from last year, and some guys had kind of been thrusted into a new role in that regard. So that was certainly part of it, but the chemistry and kind of how we handle adversity and throughout the course of a game, all of that stuff was certainly things that we anticipated having to deal with and overcome. And, this is an unforgiving league, but I think at the same time, we felt that, we'd be a little further along in those areas. And, that's why we had to, have some hard conversations, because we haven't been as consistent as we feel we should. And we're certainly, searching for ways from an X's and O's standpoint to help our guys as much as we can. But I think there's some controllable things that we just have to do better and do better more consistently.
All right, we'll move on to Griffin's Strong with Patrick Murphy on that. Griffin.
Hey, Jake, just wondering on the offensive side of things with the string of kind of like sub 40% shooting games. Like you guys hadn't had any of those at a certain point, and now it's been a string of those, with the Iowa game being an outlier. I'm just wondering what you've seen as kind of consistent threads, what you would like to be doing better on offense, just what you're identifying there in terms of what's going wrong on that end.
Yeah, great question. Our 2-point field goal percentage has dipped significantly. And I think even if you look at some of our high major non-conference games and compare that, to Big Ten games, that's been an issue for us. And I think the reason for that, in looking at all the film and all the finishes and what our 2-point field goal attempts look like, it's twofold. It's one of it is, we're struggling to kind of read the crowds in the paint, and we're forcing some shots where we should be hitting an open man for an uncontested three or an opportunity to attack another closeout while the defense is in rotation. So it's something we have to continue to get better, and it's something we're working on every day. And then, we're taking too high of a volume of contested mid-range jump shots. I think it just that's an area that we have to grow in, and we have to grow in like right now. It's just really, really hard to have an efficient offense when you're taking the volume of mid-range, contested mid-range shots that we are right now. And, I think some of this, like, we have players who are capable of making those, and we have players who thrive in that space. So, we're not trying to take away opportunities for guys and we want guys to have freedom. You know, we've really given guys a lot of freedom this year to read the game. But, you know, I think part of this is we have to adjust better to how teams in our league are guarding us. And we were so efficient, you know, from 2 leading into conference play. And teams knew that, and we got scouted, and we've just haven't consistently been able to adjust. And that's the thing that I think we got to really grow in quickly.
And then just on Indiana here, the last like what 3 games for Trace have been, you know, obviously standout performances. Is this like, do you think the best version of him that you guys have seen just in the past few games here? And how has he evolved, I guess, over the years in your eyes?
He's been on quite a stretch. And, you know, I think his impact on both sides of the ball just has continued to get better throughout the course of his career. And obviously he's had a long career there. And I think when you take a really, really talented player who has an opportunity to grow and progress, you know, over an extended period of time, this is what you can get. And there's a great deal of benefit, you know, for him and Indiana at the same time. And but his shot blocking and defensive ability to switch on the perimeter at times, and his defensive instincts are, I think, have really grown, and it's impressive. Obviously he's finishing at a really high level right now. His athleticism is, you know, he uses it, you know, very consistently to be impactful on both sides of the ball. So he's, you know, I think he's one of the better players in the country, not just one of the very best players in this league. And he's certainly got a lot of momentum right now.
All right, we'll go Patrick Murphy with Andy Backstrom on deck. Patrick.
Hey, Jake, thanks for doing this. Going back to what Adam was asking about practice, have you seen that fluctuate during this streak more, or during this month, I guess, more so than it was earlier in the season? As you mentioned, things have been kind of up and down since you've gotten into Big Ten play. Has practice been a reflection of play more than it is sometimes with other teams?
I think at times, I don't know, you know, I think typically, you know, you're hard pressed to find teams that have a great practice every day. You know, I think the timing of the way we practice leading into the Illinois game was certainly concerning. You know, the injuries that we dealt with there for a stretch, you know, having Zed out, and when you have important pieces, it affects practice. It certainly does, especially an older guy. And you know, so I think I don't know that it's necessarily been like a consistent theme. You know, I think we've had some really good practices, and we've grown, you know, over this month. That's the frustrating part, is that we didn't show that, and we didn't show that in practice leading up to the Illinois game, and we didn't show it that game. And I think that's part of where it's a big part of where the frustration lies, is because we did have some good practices. We had some good practices, you know, and we played better against Iowa. We played better at Rutgers, you know, and so I think that's the frustrating part, is that you got a chance to go into a hostile environment and you know, get a good win, and we didn't put ourselves in position to do that. And so we have to get better and just keep fighting kind of one day at a time to really earn the right to play well. And, you know, I think that's what we didn't do going into Illinois, but I don't think that's been I wouldn't say that's been a consistent theme this month.
And on the offensive side of things, how much has that scouting that you mentioned, Big Ten opponents, been a component of things kind of falling off a little bit, as opposed to guys just missing? I mean, how much do you weigh back and forth there? Obviously, the guys you play regularly, the teams you play regularly, know you guys a little bit better and whatnot. And how much is Big Ten defenses, Big Ten familiarity a factor in all this?
Yeah, I think both of those things play a role. You know, the reality is we've had some games, Minnesota comes to mind, where we missed shots that we would make most every other game, you know, regardless of who we're playing. And then we're going against some teams who are scouting, you know, some of our tendencies, you know, with our personnel. And Iowa, for example, Iowa kind of plays a defensive system, and we were able to exploit that system in some regards. So I think it's both. I think we have to do a better job of again we're getting the ball to the paint, and we're causing rotation, we're forcing help. We have to do a better job of reading that situation. We have to read it at a much higher level than we are right now. And teams are committing more guys when we drive because of our personnel, I think, and reading some tendencies. But we've shown the ability. I think the encouraging thing is we've shown the ability to be good in that area. We just gotta keep fighting to do it more consistently. And I think the reality is, as kind of the floor shrinks in league play, we got to get a higher volume of threes up. We do. We got some good 3-point shooters. We're not, I don't think our team is necessarily built to be an extreme high number of 3 attempts, but we certainly have, capable shooters. We're shooting a good percentage. We need to find more volume there. And I think if we can read those situations better, that'll help us do that. Does that answer that for you? I'll give you good.
All right, and we'll go Andy Backstrom with Jack Emerson on deck. Andy.
Hey, Jake, you mentioned the dip in the 2-point field goal percentage, and you talked about the paint decisions, and sometimes you need to kick it out. It does feel like sometimes, though, you guys are getting good shots around the rim, and they just aren't falling. Do those misses build on each other, like when you go through a losing streak like you guys did? Is it overthinking? I mean, what goes into those kinds of misses where it is a good look and it just doesn't fall inside?
Yeah, I think it can certainly feel contagious. I think it felt contagious at the beginning of the Nebraska game. I mean, I can think of multiple, like 4 or 5 field goal attempts in the first half where if you were to say we would get those shots going into that game, that we're going to make that 95% of the time. And so I think it can certainly feel that way. But I've been proud of, I think we've had some really good, we've rebounded well from that standpoint in some second halves where we have struggled in the first half. So I think that speaks to kind of the confidence that our guys have. But there's some technical things we can do better in those situations, certainly. But a lot of it is like, you got to be confident in that moment, and you got to play with a great deal of force and physicality in this league when you're close to the rim. And we have guys who can do that and who have done that. Unfortunately, we've kind of had multiple guys struggle in that area at the same time.
All right, we'll go Jack Emerson with Steve Hellwagon on deck. Jack.
Morning, Coach. The last 4 games, we've kind of seen Zed's efficiency take a little bit of a dip. I think he's shooting around 36% in the last couple of games. How much is that of him kind of getting back from injury, and how much of that is just kind of him missing shots?
Yeah, I think, there's certainly Zed's banged up, and there's certainly, he's dealing with some injuries, and I think that's absolutely affected, his efficiency. Kind of look over the course of his career, I don't know that he's quite ever gone through a stretch, like he has recently. And, I think he deserves a ton of credit, because he's a tough kid. He worked really, really hard to get back as quickly as he could. And, I think it's only a matter of time before he gets back to being that, the Zed that we know he can be, but part of when you're going through an injury or you're coming back from an injury, it's not always necessarily just the practice time you miss, but it's not being able to do some of the skill work and things. Your daily routine's different. And that's impacted that as well for him. So I think he's continuing to get stronger, get better, and get healthier. And, I would anticipate kind of things to improve for him in the efficiency area as he continues to do that. But yeah, it's without question, it's affected him.
All right, we'll go Steve Hellwagon and back to Adam Jardine to finish up with a follow-up. Steve.
Yeah, Coach, you mentioned Jackson Davis earlier for Indiana. Who are some of the other guys that have really kind of caught your eye as you've scouted them, it seems like they're getting more contributions from more guys and not just relying on him solely to get the job done now, it seems like.
Yeah, the two freshmen have been playing at a high level for him. I think both those guys are good players. Saw them a lot, at the back end of their high school career, and certainly anticipated them to be good players for him. So, I think that's helped. And then they got some veteran, wing perimeter players that are having good years and that have been consistent for them. So, I think they have a great deal of depth. I think a guy like Trey Galloway's having a great year. He's having a great year, and Miller Kopp, and Bates is certainly coming into his own a little bit more. So they got depth across the board, both in the front court and the back court. And they're playing well right now. I think they're confident. They got some momentum. So, that stuff can certainly become contagious to guys, but their depth is a strength for them. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, and we'll go one follow-up each with Adam Jardy and Patrick Murphy. Adam.
Well, Jake, you talked about maybe wanting to attempt a few more threes, and you also just talked there about Zed a moment ago. And I'm wondering, the way that Zed's offensive production has dipped here these last couple of games, are those two related? It seems like teams are able to take him away, and it's maybe impacting how many times you're able to get open looks from three. Teams aren't doubling on him maybe quite as much, or he's just struggling more. Are those related at all, that as Zed's 2-point field goal percentage drops, the teams are guarding you more tightly on the perimeter and not letting you get opportunities?
Yeah, I think in the flow of the game, it absolutely can. I mean, there's going to be some games still where Zed is doubled. And, I think not only Zed kind of in the paint, whether he's being doubled or not, but I think a lot of times when we're driving the ball, teams aren't helping off Sean. They're not helping. Illinois didn't help off Bruce when we drove the paint. And so I think some teams are saying, hey, you got to show us you can consistently make, some of these shots that you've been struggling to make recently. And we're going to stay more connected on the perimeter. So there's some things we talked about that we can certainly do to help counteract that. And, I anticipate we'll be better at that moving forward. But yeah, I think when you're struggling from an efficiency standpoint at times in the flow of a game, teams are certainly going to hug up a little bit more. But I still think Zed, like, we're still going to see some double teams. We're still going to see some heavy help in the paint teams. And, we just got to continue to read those situations better.
And when you come into a season, you spend all offseason with plans and ideas, and you kind of know what you think you're going to get, maybe, and it's going to grow and evolve. When you hit a spell like you guys have hit right here, like, how realistic is it to adapt on the fly, to change, make drastic changes? Like, I just wonder, like, when you do have a plan and things are getting tough, like, how much can you realistically change mid-season when you're playing every 3 or 4 days?
Yeah, it's a great question. We certainly made some changes going into the Iowa game, and those were effective. They weren't as effective, against Illinois. So I think there's going to be an element of game planning for each specific game. I told you guys this before. I love the versatility of this team, and I think that's a strength for us, and it needs to continue to be a strength for us. And we got to find ways to, put us in situations where we can really utilize that. And that varies from game to game based on how teams play. And it can change from one half to another or within a half. And we got smart guys. Our execution hasn't necessarily been an issue, Adam. I just think it's kind of reading the help and reading the crowds that we got to get better at. And, I think we need to take more advantage in transition. We've had some really good possessions when Ice and Bruce are playing with great pace and we're filling lanes and running hard, and we got to do that consistently. And then we got to be able to slow down a little bit and execute and grind out some longer possessions and kind of feel what that necessary game is requiring. So you anticipate every year having to adjust throughout the course of this is such a well-coached league, And, you can see by the results of a lot of our games, just how kind of 1, 2, 3, 4 possessions can matter. So you got to constantly be fighting to get, if you can get 2 or 3 or 4 possessions better every game, the results can really change quickly. And there's certainly, we're constantly fighting to make adjustments on offense without, I think there's a balance with that. You can't overwhelm and kind of, you don't want guys overthinking either. So there's a balance you got to find there.
And
Thanks.
then we'll finish up with one more with Patrick Murphy. Patrick.
Jake, I'm watching the Spurs play the other night, and Kata's starting for them, and Malachi's coming off the bench. Obviously, there's other guys in the NBA, but have you guys seen the benefit of that on the recruiting trail, being able to point directly to guys having an impact on NBA teams that you've coached, or this staff? I know you weren't here for all that, but the staff has coached. Has that helped on the recruiting trail with your guys' pitches?
Yeah, absolutely. I think not just guys having success at that level, but we talk a lot about the development of guys while they're here. Malachi's, obviously his story's well documented. Like, NBA teams weren't beating down our door asking about Malachi when he got on campus, and that changed quickly, after the new year. So it's certainly, if you ask from a man, everyone on our team, they all would want to play in the NBA. And I think in recruiting, every kid has a dream to do that. And when you can show kind of a blueprint to help them get there, and you can show that, Ohio State has a platform and the resources to help guys become the best they can, it's certainly valuable. It was valuable with this. Was part of discussions with this freshman class we have, and part of discussions with the incoming class we have. But we're always looking for guys where it's not only about that. I think that's an important part of it. But absolutely, it's valuable. And we got some, just Jay Sean Tate's another guy. What Dwayne Washington has been doing, in his story. So I think you just go down the line, and the path from being in this program to getting in the NBA, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. And I think the NBA has there's an expectation now when guys come from our program and go to the NBA because of, how our guys have handled themselves, how they've performed, we hear that all the time, that, NBA teams assume, some certain things about our guys because they're coming from our program. And that's a great compliment to Coach and the program that he runs. And, I think the consistent development, since he's been here. But yeah, hopefully we can continue to, have guys grow and develop into that, and we'll continue to use that.
And just real quick, we didn't get to ask Coach Holtman about this the other night. We saw Felix leave the locker room in a walking boot. Is he good to go for tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm sure Coach will update you on that. I mean, he was in practice yesterday. And I haven't heard any updates as far as kind of what his where he'll be today. But yeah, I think Coach will, I'm sure, I'll update you on that.